A lot of kids seem to think it's cool to be a gangster nowadays. Like it's fun. Just chilling in the corner with your homies. Doing nothing becomes your life. People saying gangs is like one big family.
The boys!
Now it's just families killing families. It's real cool to be a gangster, huh? What you think?
We're not Los Angeles by any means, and we're not some of the larger municipal, we're not Chicago or New York in relation to gang activity. In roughly 13 or 14 years, we've gone from a little under 200 identified gang members and associates, and we've ended up now to where we're over probably 1,200 validated gang members alone.
I think that gangs exist for about 4 basic reasons. Number one, the statistics tell us that wherever you have poverty, you're going to have gangs. We've had a war on poverty in the United States for a long time, at least since the 60s. It doesn't look like we've come too close to solving that problem. We're going to have gangs. Drugs is another reason. There's been a war declared on drugs, I believe, by our government since the 1970s. Doesn't look like we're doing too good there either. Wherever you have drugs, you're going to have gangs. Racism. We've done better since the civil rights movement, but again, racism is also another reason why kids join gangs. But the problem that we're working on, why we believe kids or gangs exist, is because of broken families.
I was around 11 when I started, hanging out with my friends that were already hanging with those guys.
Once I, turned to the gang, I had more friends, and almost like if I had a family, and like people actually respected me and knew me, and some people even were scared of me.
Age of 10, came from Mexico into Stockton. By the age of 12, I was in a gang. The reason for protection, because I didn't speak English, so I was considered a wetback.
I would say 11, maybe younger, but him realizing what he really is into would be around 11, 12.
The first skinheads I met were always having fun. They were always loaded, and that's what I wanted.
I like that pack mentality. I had that pack mentality, I liked everything that came with it. The partying.
Smoke that, drink this, and then later on, they're gonna probably be told, you should sell this, you can get money. So, they already did it, why not sell it and get more money out of that? Buy me some new shoes, buy me some new clothes. Oh man, I was spending so much money, I don't even think I calculated what I was making monthly. That gets addicting, money gets addicting,
The money, you're secure, you're powerful with money. You got money, nobody can mess with you. Money gives you status. They appreciate what you do for them, and that gives you more power.
It all starts with, beating up other kids that are on the opposite gang, and with tagging, spray painting the walls with your neighborhood or where you're from.
Once you get older, it just turns into knives and into guns, and then shooting, stabbings, regular people just getting beat up. Violence, that's really all it is.
In the last 2 years that I've been here, most of the homicides and most of the violent crime that I've seen on the streets has been either perpetrated by gang members or as a result of gang tension. So it's here, it's emerging, and it's up to the community to whether we're going to try to nip it at the bud or we're just going to ignore it and it's going to get out of control.
Back in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, started the La M, which is just Spanish for the letter M. That's the Mexican Mafia, and they actually control all the street Sureño gangs. And within the Sureños, you have different sets or cliques. But inside the California Department of Corrections, inside the prison system, the Sureños, or the Mexican Mafia, did not respect any of the northern Hispanic inmates. They said they were farmers, they weren't true gangsters because they weren't from LA, and so they weren't going to treat them like a Sureño or a gangster. So they preyed on them just like they would any other inmate within the Department of Corrections. So they would extort them, steal from them, whatever their hustle was in there. There was no special pass for the Hispanics from Northern California. So the Nuestra Familia, because of this, because they were getting preyed on, they came up with their own protection group from the Mexican Mafia, and what was said to be from law enforcement. They wanted their equal rights, and they wanted protection for their people when they're in prison. So the Nuestra Familia was born.
First thing that's going to happen to any inmate that comes off the bus, who do you want to cell with? North, south, white, black. It's really that simple. And the blacks, they'll split up into between blood, crip, and maybe non-affiliated. They make the choice, say I'm going to cell with the northerner. So they're going to go with the northerners. First thing they're going to do when they show up in that little cell is a little note. They call it wheelas, mini kites, a lot of names for it, of their name, where they came from, what their neighborhood is, crimes they committed to come inside the prison, things that they're willing to do for the gang, people they know out there on the streets, all that kind of stuff, like a background history for an employment, like a job. And it could be up to like 35 different questions, and they have to answer all those questions before they're accepted into the group.
And when you're a first-termer, there's no questions asked. You do what you do. You do what you're told. Somebody hands you a knife and says to go stab that dude, you go stab that dude. Or later on that night, somebody's going to stab you,
Well, everything you hear about prison is what it is. Since I've been going to prison, I've seen everything you can think of. I've never seen rape, but I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just never happened to see it. And people getting stabbed, people getting beat up literally to death, people running because they're owed money for drugs, they have debts, they messed up, made a wrong call, political wise, whatever. There's so many ways to fuck up in there.
Now, a common question comes up with how do these prison gangs control anything that happens out here on the streets? Why is someone from Chico, who's part of Barrio Southside Sureños, why would he ever listen to some high-ranking Mexican Mafia inmate member who's most likely doing 23 hours a day on lockdown and is out of his cell for 1 hour a day? How does he even communicate orders out to the streets? I asked one of our younger street gang members, why on earth would you pay attention to somebody that's locked up for the rest of his life in prison and do what they order you to out here on the street when you're free? And he told me that, he says, I know I'm a gang member, and he says, and I know the kind of lifestyle that I live, and I know that eventually my lifestyle is going to lead me to prison. I'll eventually get caught, and that's where I'm going. And if I didn't do what that person from La M or the Mexican Mafia told me to do, then I know that I'm going to have to pay for that. And I'm going to be targeted for violence. So I'm going to do what they say just to protect myself, and that's the way it is.
Emanuel, en la escuela que estaba, teníamos problemas con los maestros porque siempre nos estaban diciendo que él dibujaba pistolas, monos caídos, y que eso no era bueno para los compañeros. Y son cosas que uno empieza a reflexionar, y ese fue uno de los problemas que tuvimos en la escuela de él, que pues nos decían, o tienen que hablar con él y corregir esto, porque si no, pues ya no lo vamos a querer en la escuela.
We were having dinner. This was around, I'd say around 8 or so, something like that. And we heard this whistle.
Sí. Al principio y yo no pensaba que eso estaba pasando. Y pues ese es uno de los errores que cometemos los padres, que no ponemos tanta atención. Y si dicen voy con mi amigo, y uno piensa que ok, ve con tu amigo, pero uno tiene que tomar información sobre el amigo, sus costumbres, sus ideas, conocer los padres, saber dónde viven, y no lo hace uno. Entonces ahí empiezan los problemas.
When we went out there, we saw the tires of the cars that were slashed, and we saw some guys down there from a rival gang, and we said, oh, you know what? There they go. Let's get them. So doing what we know best at the time, pop the trunk, grab a couple machetes and bats, and we started walking towards those guys. Little did we know it was a setup.
Sí, pero sí, y yo sé eso, que las pandillas tienen demasiada influencia y que atrapan los niños a como de lugar, pero siempre el principal problema es que le falta a uno mucha información, y le falta a uno conocer todas las consecuencias de las acciones que hagan.
There was guys across the street with shotguns that once we were out wide in the open, they just started firing upon us. And when we were going down towards them, I was at the front. I was first pretty much. And then once they fired, I saw a friend of mine, he fell in front of me. And
pues uno siempre está dispuesto, pero los hijos son cerrados y no se dejan. Pero sí, por supuesto que sí, comencé a pensar mucho más en que las cosas eran más graves de lo que uno piensa. Y pues fue muy difícil darse uno cuenta realmente de las consecuencias tan grandes y tan graves que son estar involucrado en las pandillas.
The impact of the gunshot kind of swept me off my feet, landed on my chest, and I got hit throughout the head and back with the shotgun. And when I got to the hospital, I was spitting blood all over the place, and I couldn't breathe at the time, and I didn't want to die. But as they kept, trying to keep me alive, I was in so much pain, I couldn't move either.
La operación que a él le hicieron fue de 6 horas. Y fueron 6 horas que yo me pasé ahí sentada.
And what happened is they had hit my spinal cord. And anyway, the doctor said, you know, we could either send him to Stanford or we can keep him here. But by the time he gets to Stanford in a aircraft, he'll be dead.
La sala estaba llena de mucha gente de los otros de los otros niños, de los otros muchachos. Y nosotros no teníamos muchos amigos que dijeran, aquí estoy.
So they just kept me there, and they brought in a priest to give me my last rites.
Yo no podía llorar. Y me dice una señora, oiga, ¿que usted no quiere a su hijo? Y le digo, sí, lo quiero mucho. Pero es que no llora. Y yo le dije, es que no soluciono nada con llorar. Pero lo quiero. Y yo le había pedido a Dios que no me lo dejara inválido, que no me lo dejara incapacitado mentalmente. Y yo le dije, Dios, déjamelo bien o te lo entrego hoy.
I never really had anybody say, hey, you got to do this. I know a lot of people do get pressured into doing stuff like that. But for me, it was like something that I wanted to do for myself. I wanted to build a name for myself. I wanted to be known and recognized as someone. So that's what I did.
I would get into a lot of fights and jump people, things like that.
I just did what I needed to do. You know, if there was something that needed to be done, you know, either I would do it or we'd find someone else to do it for us. I was a pretty bad kid. I had a very violent demeanor to me. I've done a lot of things. You know, I've stabbed people, I've shot people, I've beat on people, done a lot of things that I regret now.
I would go out, we would jump people, fighting all the time. I got shot at a lot of times. I got jumped a couple times. And it was just mostly just the fighting and getting shot at, jumping other people, drinking, just hanging out.
When it comes to gangs, yeah, it's most of the time violence. It's what they want to see that you're committed, that you're not just bullshitting, that you're about the business, you know?
I had to pretty much do what any of the elders told me to do, you know? And if they wanted me to go take off on somebody, I took off on them. If they wanted me to, you know, clean their room, I cleaned their room. You know, whatever they said to do, you know, being a prospect, just like any other prospect. You know, you do what you're told until they decide you've earned your boots.
But the putting in work concept is if you're down with the group, then you'll commit offenses or you'll commit some sort of crime, generally a violent crime such as an assault or a battery, even a weapon-related assault with a deadly weapon. That way the other gang members know that this person is willing to commit crimes to benefit the group, and that that individual is also willing to commit crimes and put themselves at risk for incarceration for the group and surrender themselves, their individualism, for the benefit of the group.
So by the time I was in high school, I had already been stabbed and shot and house firebombed and car, everything that happens in that lifestyle. And I was loving it. Even the power, the excitement, the adrenaline rush. And I was putting in work, also hurting people and trying to kill people. I'm glad I never actually killed anybody.
He was just standing outside and he wasn't wearing a shirt. He was wearing a hat the color of the opposite, the gang rivals, and a belt as well that was hanging down low. And he wasn't wearing a shirt, visible tattoos. When we drove by, he acted like he was shooting at us like with an invisible gun. So we took it as disrespect and we turned around, hopped out the car and just shot him.
Once you're involved, and if you're really out there doing it, you're really out there trying to make a name for yourself, that's how it is. You are eventually either going to get arrested, or you're going to get shot, or you're going to get stabbed. That's just how it is. And people don't realize that when we're kids. We don't understand that that's the only things that are waiting for us.
This is what's going to happen. It's I use the word inevitable a lot because kids don't understand what they're doing right now. To them, it's fun. They're interpreting fun differently than what it should be. It's not what they think it is. I tell them if they continue to live the life that they're living, it's going to catch up to them. And one thing about being in gangs is what I tell the kids: if you don't get out of it, you're either going to end up locked up or dead. That's it. There's nothing else you're going to get out of that.
And a lot of the attributes and the characteristics are admirable ones: loyalty, family, brotherhood, protection. Those are all things, terms, concepts that we're wired as human beings to crave, to want. Unfortunately, the gang element takes those good things from an early age and twists them, perverts them, counterfeits them, bastardizes them.
There's friendship, there's brotherhood, a sort that you're part of something and you're someone important and you have power. But really, in the end, you don't have any of those. You don't have friends. You don't have power. And you're no one important. Not to society, anyway. I mean, you might be to still some of your friends. I mean, by the age of 20, a lot of them are in prison and dead. So really, you end up with no friends. A lot of them end up ratting you out to save their own neck. So you end up realizing that you do have no friends in the long run.
And like they say that that they're friends, that they're your friends, they're not your friends. Because before I caught my murder case, I was incarcerated a year before, and I never got no letters. Nobody ever went to visit me. They didn't take care of my kids. They didn't check up on my kids. They'll just replace you with somebody else.
I understand when I talk to some of these kids, I understand the allure of it, and I let them know that. I understand why kids join gangs. I understand why they might be interested in the gang lifestyle. I've had family members who have been gang members and been in trouble with the law, and I was lucky enough not to go down that path.
Every night I lay down, and every single night I lay down and I worry about my son. Every night. Sometimes I drive my husband crazy, or my roommate, or whoever's around me. They're worried and concerned too, but every night I worry about my son. He's so active in the gang. they do certain things. I don't know if he's gonna get hurt. He's chose his path, but yes, every single night I worry about him. Every night. He's who I live every day for. That little monster, and I love him with all my heart.
I got into a street gang probably by the age of maybe 13, 14 years old. So, and I was introduced to that by older friends, older cousins. From there, I started getting more involved into gang life, in which I started getting in trouble more and more. Next thing I know it, before I knew it, I was already going to the county jail. And then from there, started going to prison. And got involved in, became a northerner, basically. And it was pretty rough. It was an experience that I wouldn't want any kid to be involved in or to get into.
If you were just rebellious, disrespectful to authority, not carrying books, not doing homework, all that, you were cool, you were in, you were one of the homies. Because I knew that, like everybody else in the hood, I was gonna drop out of school after I had, recruited and did work, put in work, and sold drugs and got my money and the cars and everything the youngsters have when they're teenagers, the girls, all that in the gangs. And I was gonna drop out of school and had this fantasy world. I was gonna be the next Scarface, the next Al Capone. And usually the kids, the youngsters, they have that. They live in the fantasy world. And some actually make it to organized crime and, short-lived life.
I cannot tell you why it happens, but we do have a lot of 7th graders, 8th graders by the age of 12, age of 13 already telling adult figures, hey, listen, I'm going to be involved in gangs. I'm either going to be norteño or I'm sureño, and it's okay because I know I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And it's very sad because at age 12 or 13, for them to cement their future and say, I'm going to be a gang member and it's okay for me to go to jail, it's just terribly wrong. And they don't understand necessarily the ramifications of it. They don't understand that it's hurting their future, their families, their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and they don't necessarily understand that it's hurting their future children if they decide to have any.
That even though it seems cool, in the long run, it's not fucking worth it. You're gonna either end up handicapped, dead, or in prison for damn sure. Die at a young age or die old in prison. You see somebody get out of prison and you think that because they got out of prison, they got respect coming. No, it's not cool to go to prison. It's not cool to miss your family, your loved ones. It's not cool that you can't see them. It's not cool when somebody goes to prison. That's not earning respect, so don't think they're cool because of that.
Just kind of your friends and stuff? You know where you're eventually going to end up, right? Prison, dead. You accept that? Do you have any other plans for the future besides this?
If you knew that your kid had a fatal illness, if this disease did not go treated, went untreated, the kid would die, what would you do to treat your kid? What would you do to get your kid the medicine that he needed to get well? Almost every parent I've asked that question to say anything. I'll do anything. If your kid is flirting with the gang lifestyle, that's exactly the situation that you're in. It's that desperate.
It's usually the ones that refuse to think or believe more than anything that their child is involved. Those are the ones that end up getting into more problems.
And my dad, very hardworking, old-fashioned Mexican parents, but they had no clue. My mom was in denial. She would not accept when the teachers told her that me and my brother were in a gang in the 6th grade or so. She said, not my babies.
They put on the blinds, if you will, and they don't see that their son, while he may stay home and be a great model kid at home, that he's doing other stuff at school or doing other stuff outside on the street pertaining to gangs.
The parents from Mexico or other Latin American countries, they're coming from a whole different culture, and then they bring their children here and they put them in the public schools. And they don't realize the pressure that their children are under.
Ellos comenzaron en la escuela. Uno no se da cuenta luego, porque uno carece de información y carece de conocimientos acerca del proceso de cómo trabajan ellos. Entonces uno siempre está ignorante y es lo peor que le puede suceder a uno. Cuando se da uno cuenta, pues ya es demasiado tarde.
Well, I think we need to start educating parents so that they can identify if their child is starting to lean toward gangs. We need to educate the parents as to what that gang style looks like. Need to educate parents as to what is norte and what the color red means, sur, what the color blue means, what that is associated with. And then parents need to start getting to know their kids as friends, who they hang around with at school.
Para los padres que tienen hijos o hijas que están involucrados más o menos en las pandillas, simplemente tomar el tiempo y pasar tiempo con sus hijos, porque eso para un joven es el mejor regalo que le pueden dar. Así es que eso, para mí lo más importante es para los padres que tomen el tiempo de tomar interés en las cosas que están pasando con sus hijos en la casa, en la escuela, de ponerse a fijar las cosas, el estilo de música que están escuchando, el modo que se están vistiendo, ¿verdad? Los amigos que vienen a la casa a preguntar por él o por ella, a platicar con ellos quiénes son tus padres, de dónde vives, de dónde son, y nomás enseñarles que, ¿sabes qué, hijo? Te quiero y me importa lo que está pasando en tu vida. Aunque no lo creas, me importa.
Bueno, pues las primeras señales son, pienso yo, es la forma de vestir, los dibujos que hacen, el comportamiento, y creo que gran parte en gran parte también una de las señales es cuando dejan de obedecer.
We're going to go to a juvenile gang arrest for a collapsible baton, a gang member dressed down, red rag, red shoes, and a collapsible baton, a dangerous weapons violation. So he's going to be arrested here shortly on a felony. Come on out real quick. That way and tell Mom what you're wearing. Yeah, there you go. Oh, touch. You got the red star and everything. That's pretty handy. The Norte Star.
But I think parents need to educate themselves as to what the current trends are and what the gang members are wearing, what they're doing, and what music they're listening to. Because even if your kid is not a gang member yet, he's going to start by wearing the colors, he's going to start by listening to the music.
Drugs is the main focus of most of the gangs, and they get violent when they're doing that, and it's territorial, and so when they're fighting for their territory, that's when you have the gang violence.
If you start out the very basic on the street level, you're talking about the more sophisticated gangsters love to use the young kids to traffic the narcotics through the neighborhoods on their bicycles, backpacks. Sometimes they'll use the young kids to take something like a drug that's heroin, mix it with methamphetamine, even marijuana, and give them small amounts to take to school to share with their friends.
So it's probably about 11 to 14. Those are the average ages of the torpedoes. If they're torpedoes usually means like assassin, like little assassin, like you go and beat somebody up. Well, now it's you go and shoot them. But they too are the little runners that run around the dope and get it all in and where it needs to be and ride their little bikes down the street to go take it to somebody else.
And once their friends smoke it, you're stuck on heroin. One time using it, you're done. So what they do is foster new clientele all the time with this. So that's one of their main target audiences for drug dealers is the young children. And they'll use the young kids that are wanting to be part of that game, make extra money. They'll pay them money. Hey, take this little amount of dope over here to 123 Main Street, drop it off for me, or hold on to it so the guy can be out there on the street. And if local law enforcement come along and the kid has it, local law enforcement isn't going to think anything about the kid riding up and down on the bicycle.
I think it's pretty serious because we're seeing younger and younger kids who are in the gangs are getting into the more serious drugs. You're seeing younger and younger children using methamphetamine when in the past they were smoking marijuana or something of that nature. And I think it's really serious. And they're getting more violent with the weapons that they're using, and the kids are getting younger and younger to prove themselves in the gangs. They're doing some of the more violent acts.
Nowadays, it's when most kids that come in, you're going to find that they're going to be related in one way or another, if not multiple, to either drugs or gangs, especially. And oftentimes, it's the two combined.
There isn't the formalized structure in Chico that some of the other areas where I've worked have had. Prison gangs have a big control of the criminal street gang population. A lot of their direction comes from the prison gangs, and they establish a certain structure to control the streets. In Salinas and in San Jose and in those areas, those structures have been there for a very long time. They are very well executed, and I think here in Northern California, especially this far up north, those structures, from whether it be the Nuestra Familia or Mexican Mafia, are just not there yet. And that's the difference in sophistication and I think level of crime. But unfortunately, these young men and women are trying to get to that level.
The Federal Bureau of Prisons is housing upward to 150 federal inmates in our jail facility. And most of these inmates are Hispanic of origin, and they're from cartels, Mexico cartels, Sinaloa, and mostly Sinaloa cartel. And so I think at some level, we're going to have our local gang members associated with those individuals inside our jail, and they'll make connections, and it won't be, in my opinion, that far-fetched to think that there's going to be some sort of a, setup between the Norteños or Sureños and these Mexican cartels, and having a direct pipeline of guns and dope into our community.
But we never deal with a crime problem with just suppression. Prevention, hopefully getting to the parents and letting them know this is your child's life that we're dealing with. This is an activity in which this is not an activity in which, it's just a phase that Johnny's going through. This is not a phase that he'll outgrow, because this is a phase that'll be beyond his control. Once you're into the gang, it's very, very difficult to leave the gang. It's not as if you're going to stop your drug addiction. It's not as if you're going to stop stealing cars. When you get into the gang lifestyle, that can be a lifetime. As gangs say, blood in, blood out. And you don't want to be in a situation or have your child in a situation when they're 40 looking back and regretting a life wasted.
All that incarceration does, in my own experience, is open the doors for you to go down further into that life. Who's there? People that have been involved in this sort of lifestyle. It's not like, You got some upstanding citizen sitting in a cell in a pink t-shirt. You got this girl's a hooker, that one killed somebody, that one robbed something, you know, and what do? You sit around and talk about that. Like, is it a finishing school? It's like a polishing school, like make you look all bright and shiny so you're ready to go out on the street and do some more.
The gang lifestyle is very difficult for us to rehabilitate. It's much easier to rehabilitate drug users. There's a whole structure, there's a whole community, the rehabilitation community that is there for those folks that want to get past a drug addiction. Very little of that for gangs of people that want to get out of gangs. What do you do for such a person, other than say, okay, we'll try to help you out. Maybe we'll relocate you. You can start anew someplace. What does that mean to a person? You have to leave your family. You have to leave your comfortable surroundings. All of your friends. Well, if all of your friends are gangbangers, yeah, that's probably the best thing. But rehabilitation, that kind of third leg of the stool, when you talk about prevention and suppression and rehabilitation, is really difficult in the gang lifestyle.
It's difficult if we're going to use law enforcement as the tool that's trying to get them out of the gang. There's going to be a confrontational relationship. They've had negative contacts with law enforcement, and that's not who they're going to listen to. They're going to listen to their peers, and we need to get them away from the peers that are in the gangs. We need to get them into different organization where they don't have that pressure of being involved in the gang.
I'm not going to listen to some blonde-haired, blue-eyed lady at 12 years old that's trying to tell me she knows where I've been from. I'm going to give her the middle finger and keep rolling, you know, and keep doing whatever I want to do. I can remember one probation officer. She had prison sleeves. She had scars all over her face. She was like ruthless B-word from hell. She was so mean, and I respected her. She used to be a gang member. She used to be in Norteña. But I respected her because she could understand where I came from. I understand that people straighten up to change their lives. I understood that at that time. I understood that I thought that was unattainable at that time. But seeing her, I thought that maybe I might have a chance. I might just be able to straighten out my life at some time.
I met Maria, one of the peacekeepers, and she told me, like, since the very start when I met her, she told me, like, are you really serious about getting out of the gang? Because I don't want to be here, you know, to waste my time. And then that's when, like it hit me, like, okay, maybe she is serious, so I have to take it seriously too.
I've worked with thousands of youths that were in gangs or they were on the verge of getting in a gang, and some of them now are married, have kids, are even homeowners. You know, they're successful because just being out of the gang is just a success, period, in this type of work. And it's not easy because you're putting everything on the line to change, to not be a soldier anymore. You're actually, just like when you got in the gang, you were signing a death wish, right? Because that's what gangsters do. You're gonna die for the gang. Well, getting out of the gang is almost the same thing. You're willing to die coming into the other life, the productive, peaceful life.
The best way we can prevent children from joining gangs is to help parents raise obedient children, respectful children, healthy children, and happy children.
They take their example from us. You know, they take their example from you. You know, if you're beating your kids up, then they think that's what you do. And if you're ignoring them, they think that's what you do. And if you drink, they think that's what you do. You know, but if you get up in the morning and kiss your kids on the forehead and make them breakfast and go to work and come home and watch TV with them or read a book with them or taking to play sports, then they know that's what fathers do.
No, my mother and father they're from Texas. They're 100% against gangs, 100% against drugs. So I didn't get it from them, I got it from the streets.
¿Quién fue realmente, de quién fue realmente la culpa? ¿Quién tiene la culpa? Y sí piensa uno precisamente en las pandillas. Sí piensa uno en las pandillas porque siempre he pensado que en las pandillas hay muchos que están ahí por falta de amor. Y de eso las pandillas se aprovechan. Y pienso también que en las pandillas sí hay personas que lo hacen con muy malos sentimientos y que no se arrepienten.
I'm still apologizing to this day for everything what I've done and everything I put my parents through. Because like I said, I was a bad kid, I was a bad son. I disrespected my parents a lot. See, one thing about when we get in trouble, we don't realize that we're hurting our family members. We're not realizing that our mother and father are hurt because of our actions. See, all their lives we hear stories of what goes on in prison and what goes on in jail and this and this and that. Well, when they see their child in there, first thing comes to their mind is all the stories that they've heard about prison or jail. So, you know, the kids need to realize that when they're doing something negative, it's going to affect their family. And see, a lot of kids don't realize that. And that's one thing they need to. They need to realize what they do affects everybody in that house.
It's like my mother, she basically lost all her kids, a brother, a few sisters, 2 sisters. I regret it, you know, very much so, because they're not doing so great because of those things. Because you're losing everything you got because of these drugs and these gangs. And my mother's incarcerated. It was something that I was doing for the gang and got her involved that I shouldn't have. You know, when I went to prison, I just basically had her, you know, take care of what I was taking care of. And it just got her into a big old mess. She hasn't seen her kids in a long time, and I feel responsible for that.
When do you think she's going to get out?
Maybe 3, 4, 5 years.
Do you see her? Do you talk to her?
No, I can't. I can't visit her because I'm on parole.